All right, good morning, everyone. Today is January 27th, 2026, and today is another live trading session. Today we are looking at NASDAQ, US 30, and gold. If we look at our sentiment, NASDAQ sentiment for today has basically come out as 50-50. We then have our US 30 sentiment for today, which has come out at about 50-50 as well. And then finally, we have our gold sentiment for today, which has come out bearish so far. If we look at overall price action for the session, we see that NASDAQ since yesterday has been rallying higher. We've seen that there was a high of the day today, made at 5:45 this morning, and then NASDAQ has kind of just been trending sideways throughout the entire session since market open at 12 o'clock this morning. And then we have US 30, which US 30 is not confluencing with NAS today. We see US 30 had a rally yesterday during New York session. We had some form of consolidation going into New Day open at 12 o'clock. And then we see that we had a lot of consolidation through that London session and then a huge drop off to start the beginning of New York session. And then finally we have gold, which again, gold is still ranging from the previous day high and previous day low that was created yesterday. And we're currently in the middle of that price action, trying to figure out where it wants to take out next, whether that be taking out that previous day high or whether that be starting to trade lower and then looking to take out this previous day low. But that's basically all the updates as of so far. We will continue to sit through this session and see if any opportunities present themselves today. Okay, so 8:45 update. The sentiment is still the same for all of the pairs that have come out for today. We're looking at NASDAQ, as we talked about at market open. We had this 8:30 fair value gap that was open in the market. But since I said that the sentiment was 50-50, that's why I didn't aggressively try and take these shorts. Also, if we look at US 30, which is the confluence pair, US 30 has already taken out an objective for the day. So US 30 took out one day's low that was created yesterday, and now US 30 is now recreated back to the exact same price point that it was at 8:30 market open. And so, again, with that aggressive pricing, I didn't want to take shorts here. We're still just sitting and waiting to see if anything clean presents itself, as well as the fact that if we look at a 15-minute time frame on a higher time frame perspective, we have a fair value gap here on a 15-minute time frame. And if we take this fair value gap and move it over, we can see that this is the exact point in price where this 8:30 candle had driven into, and we're now seeing some form of pullback or retracement that's happening in the market after tapping into this higher time frame liquidity zone. And then lastly, we have gold. And gold, again, gold's still stuck between that previous day high and that previous day low. Also, we've marked out the current high of the day and the current low of the day on gold as well, to see if we get any form of confluences or any form of entry protocol in order to, again, take us to high of the day or low of the day. Currently, there isn't anything. As we see on a 5-minute time frame, there's nothing bullish or bearish fair value gap wise that we can be looking to take. And even if we go to the 15-minute, which is higher time frame perspective, we can see with this price range, there's nothing bullish or bearish in terms of fair value gaps that are currently being created. We'll see how this 15-minute candle closes on gold currently, because if it does close and doesn't retrace any lower, there could be a potential bullish fair value gap that's going to be formed with that 830 candle. But again, we have to wait for this price candle to close in order to figure out if that's actually what price is going to do for today. But that is the current update that we have. Okay, so just a quick update on where we are currently in price. As I talked about with this higher time frame liquidity grab, NASDAQ stabbed into this hourly fair value gap here, which is illustrated in the market. So NASDAQ opened at 830, stabbed into this 1 hour fair value gap, and then is now trading higher. It's currently invalid for me because we took out the high of the day before presenting any entries. I was looking at the 3-minute to see if this 3-minute fair value gap, whenever it was created with the, the 848 candle, I was going to see if price wanted to pull back into this and then go higher before taking out this current high of the day. But ultimately, that's not what happened. So NASDAQ's kind of off the table. It should continue to go bullish. Looking at a higher time frame perspective, we still have higher time frame liquidity grabs to go and attack on NASDAQ. And if we see here, we have this 4-hour fair value gap here in price that NASDAQ is most likely looking to reach into. So there's that 4-hour, and then after that 4 hour is completely broken, then we could probably see this next swing high be taken out on NASDAQ. But yeah, that's currently where we are with that. And then on YM, which is US 30, we're currently not really doing anything. Again, we've already taken out liquidity for today, being that we took that low of the week, which was Monday's low out earlier in the session. And so now we're kind of just trading sideways, as well as the fact that the sentiment is still 50-50 for US 30. So much hasn't changed on this specific pair. And then finally, we have gold once again. Gold, again, was looking to try and trade towards this high of the day. We got some form of reaction point inside of here. Again, I was looking at the 15 and the hour, but I don't see any place inside of this price action that would warrant us to make a reversal. However, we started reversing with that 840 candle, and now we are looking to most likely attack this current low of the day. We will sit here and see if we get any 5-minute entries getting to this low of the day, but just look at where price is currently. Realistically speaking, in order for there to be a 5-minute fair value gap that's made to the downside, this is a very short amount of price action for that to actually happen. From entry to where low of the day is currently is 10.6 points and moving pretty aggressively towards low of the day. So the odds of us seeing some form of pullback here for entry is kind of low, but again, we'll still continue to monitor it to see if we do get any opportunities for today. But that is our 8:58 update, which will account for the 9 o'clock update since we don't have any news events today. Okay, another update. I don't think I'm going to take this, but there's a potential opportunity forming on US 30. US 30 has been bearish the entire morning. The only thing that's going to stop me from taking this is we have double-sided sentiment here, or we have a double-sided narrative here. Basically, that just means that on the 15-minute time frame, there's a 15-minute bullish fair value gap here that US 30 has now driven into. And then if we go down to a lower time frame, being the 5-minute time frame, we know on the 5-minute we've been bearish for today, and we currently have bearish fair value gaps that are setting up to look to drive us lower. So again, if we get some form of closure below this 15-minute fair value gap before we tap back into this bearish fair value gap, then there is a potential to start looking for shorts. But again, I wouldn't take it until we've actually closed below this 15-minute fair value gap, just because I mean price is still sporadic. And if we look at Nasdaq, Nasdaq is now going bullish for the session, while US 30 is doing the opposite of that and currently going bearish for the session. So that is basically the current update. And then gold's still not doing anything. 5-minute doesn't look like anything other than consolidation. 15-minute isn't giving you any form of confluences in order to be taking you towards high or low of the day, as well as these are usually the days I try and stay away from gold, is when we're super close to low of the day, like we got at 9 o'clock, and then we revert. Because again, we're probably going to continue to be bearish for the day. It's just a matter of time for the specific setup to actually present itself. Okay, so once again, another update. We have now made some movement. We have now broken this 1 hour fair value gap to the downside, as well as this 15-minute fair value gap to the downside with aggressive price, meaning that this 5-minute is probably going to close below this. So now this can be invalidated. And so we do know that our next target in price, or our next key level that price is probably going to want to reach into, is this 49,000 level. And so again, if we can get some form of aggressive pullback entry into this 5-minute, we'll potentially look at taking this setup here. Targeting these lows here. So this is a potential for the day if we can actually get that aggressive pullback. Again, I'm still watching the time because I do need that candle to close below this 15-minute. So I'm going to need that 5-minute candle to close below that 15-minute fair value gap that we had marked out in price to even start looking at this. And I think that is basically the only thing that's going on as of right now. Again, gold's doing whatever it wants to do, and then Nasdaq has already reached its objective today. So we're not really looking at that all too much. Okay, so once again, we have failed to close below the 15-minute fair value gap with our 5-minute pricing. As we can see, the candle at 9:15 closed at 49.084, and the bottom of the 15-minute fair value gap is at 49.081. So we haven't quite closed below this form of liquidity. So we're not going to have to wait until this next 5-minute candle presents itself and see where it closes. But yeah, once again, we need that closure before I would look to take this, mainly because, for one, liquidity is still resting inside of this, so there is still a potential, if we don't close below this, for a price to impulse back up and become in a buyer's premise today, as well as the fact that, again, if we close below this price leg, given where we are in the session, it's 9:20, we have 40 minutes left in the session, given that the session ends at 10 o'clock, we'll be more aligned with the macros because we've already finished the 9 to 9:15 macro. We're now in the 9:15 to 9:30 macro, and then so on and so forth. So every 15 minutes is a new macro in the session. And so we want to be more so aligned with that, which is why we're waiting for this price closure under this 15-minute fair value gap. And yeah, that's the current update for right now. Okay, so this will probably be my last update until the end of the session, because it doesn't look like we're going to get a trade today. It's currently 9:30. We see that we finally just got this candle closure at 9:25, below this 15-minute fair value gap that was presented in the market. So now this is officially invalid. And like we talked about in a couple minutes ago, this low at 49,000 is basically our next target level. The odds of us getting back to an entry point being this 5-minute fair value gap that was presented at 9 o'clock and then coming back down here is very improbable, especially since we do only have 30 minutes left in the session and we've already started to trade more than halfway to our total target. So our total target's 140 points from entry, and we've currently ran about 100 points. So again, it's probably going to be improbable that price reacts back to this entry point and then gives us an entry. And that was really the main thing that we were looking for, as I've explained throughout this entire session. We've had NASDAQ, which it impulsed bullish off of that higher time frame fair value gap, being that hourly. And then it delivered to all of its objectives, being high of the day, and then to this higher time frame 1 hour fair value gap that was already put into the market previously in price. And then again, gold is just moving sideways still, hasn't given any clear direction, has now tried to tap into low of the day 2 times and failed to do so. So again, we'll see what gold wants to do for the rest of the day. But in terms of New York session, you probably won't get an opportunity in order to trade this. So yeah, like we talked about, we'll look at this US 30 trade probably for the rest of the session. Looking forward to take out this 49,000, and then at that point, all objectives will basically be completed for today. down to this 49,000 level and then reverted back. I was potentially looking at taking an entry off of here, but with this aggressive price coming back into this fair value gap, again, it was what, 940, 945 when these two price legs came back into the market, meaning that we would have 15 minutes in order to deliver us from our entry down to our take profit, which we were looking at 49,000. So that's why that was improbable, and that's why ultimately I decided not to take that. Again, 3 minutes left in the session, and if we would have gotten into shorts, we would have basically been sitting at break even in this fair value gap. And then again, NASDAQ not really doing too much, and gold consolidating. So that will conclude today's trading session, and we will be back on Thursday for another live trading session.